Alright, so today we got new information about characters and items that will be coming in the 1.7 patch of Genshin Impact, specifically Sayu, Yoimiya, and some other things. And today I just wanted to go over those. If you do end up enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get into the news. So first up we have Electro Traveler. His normal attack seems to be the same as his previous versions. However, his elemental skill will perform 3 quick electro slashes. The slashes will cause electro damage and leave behind a Magatama Jade when they hit an enemy. Only 2 Jades can be produced at a time, and using the skill again will reset the Jades produced. When a character is nearby, they will absorb the Jade and receive the following effects. They receive elemental energy and increased energy recharge during its duration. That's pretty interesting because it turns Traveler into a sort of support character, maybe a sub DPS, kind of like Kazuha. The previous iterations of the Traveler were able to do good damage, but I don't think many people really had them as a main DPS. So this little support skill right here will definitely earn Traveler a spot on more people's teams. His elemental burst, Blessing of Electro. When the character on the field hits an enemy with a normal or charge attack, a lightning strike is generated, causing electro damage to the enemy. This can occur every 0.5 seconds. That's also really interesting too because it says when the character on the field hits an enemy. So I kind of wonder, does it mean if he switches out, the character that you have in will still be able to hit it? Because that just goes back into what I said about him being a support character now. And that will definitely be a lot better than how he seems now because Elemental Mastery and Electro is getting a buff in the 1.6 patch. His constellations. Constellation 1, the maximum amount of Magatama J's generated increased to 3, so you can get even more, of those buff effects. When C2, when an enemy is hit by lightning generated by Blessing of Electro, their electro resistance is decreased by 15% for 8 seconds. And I wonder, does that stack as well? Because he can get a lightning strike every 0.5 seconds, meaning you can get a good bit of electro resistance if you constantly hit them. His C4, when a character receives the Magatama Jade buff, if their current energy is under 35%, the Jade provides 100% more energy. So that's really good for keeping, characters who have low energy recharge, giving them their ultimate more. And his C6, every 2 hits of lightning generated by Blessing of Electro will cause the next lightning to deal 100% more damage, and regenerate 1 energy for the character on the field. So Electro Traveler seems very good, and he's definitely going to have a place on my team. He's giving a bunch of energy recharge, and passive damage if his ultimate allows you. Just keep it on when he switches out. So so far, just seeing it on paper, I'm very impressed with him. So next we're going to get into Sayu. Now Sayu is the Animal Claymore user who will be coming up in the 1.7 patch. Her normal attack performs up to 4 consecutive swings. Her charged attack consumes stamina to spin around with the Claymore and attack enemies, so she has the same charge attack as Razor. Her elemental skill, she curls into a spinning wheel called a Furin, crashing into enemies and dealing animal damage. At the end of the duration, she performs a dancing kick which causes animal AoE damage. The press enters the Furin state, rolls a short distance forward, and performs a dancing kick. The hold continues to roll forward in Furin roll and gains increased resistance to interruption. During this state, Sayu can control her direction of movement, and pressing E again will cause her to return to normal after performing a dancing kick, stronger than that of the press E. Elemental Infusion. Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, and Electro can occur once during the hold E and last 10 seconds at most. When this effect ends, the skill will enter cooldown. The longer Sayu stays in Furin mode, the longer the cooldown would be. This is an interesting skill. It kind of reminds me of, Sonic's little roll thing, and I kind of hope it is kind of like that. And I'm very interested to see, that in action. Her Elemental Burst creates another helper that aids Sayu, deals animal damage to enemies nearby, and heals teammates nearby. The amount healed scales based on Sayu's attack, and the untoppled Luo Lai is summoned. I don't know if I said that right, probably not. Depending on the surroundings, periodically takes one of the following actions. If all nearby characters have HP above 70%, it will attack one enemy nearby, dealing animal damage. If there exists characters with HP equal to or below 70%, it will heal the character with the lowest HP percentage. The amount healed scales off Sayu's attack. If there are no enemies nearby and all characters' HP are above 70%, characters will still be healed. That's pretty interesting. It kind of reminds me of Chi-Chi, the way her healing scales off of her attack. And a little bit of Bennett because it If there are enemies on the field and your characters are above 70%, it will not heal them. And her passives. Passive 1. When Sayu is on the team, some wild animals such as crystal flies will not be alerted of your approach. That's going to be a very useful ability because I hate having to, chase a crystal fly and it disappears right as I grab it. Her passive 2. When Sayu triggers a swirl reaction, all party members recover 300 HP and an additional 1.2% HP for every point of elemental mastery Sayu have. 1.2 HP. That can end up being a lot of healing because let's say if you have an elemental mastery build and you get up to, say, 1,000 HP, that's around 1,000 health that you heal back. This effect can only be triggered once every 2 seconds. Her third passive, Luo summoned by Elemental Burst, receives the following traits. When it heals a character, the other party members next to the target character will receive 20% of the amount healed, and increased AoE of damage dealt to enemies. So she's kind of like an AoE healer in a way. I like that a lot. And now onto her constellations. Her C1, Luo summoned by Elemental Burst, is no longer restricted by HP percent. It can heal while dealing damage to enemies at the same time. So her Constellation 1 is something you definitely want to go for, so she can, her Luo can do both roles at once. Her Constellation 2, when pressing Elemental skill, damage dealt by Furin increases by 3.3%. When under the effects of the hold skill, every 0.5% damage dealt by Furin increases by 3.3%. I'm wondering, is that every 0.5 seconds? Maximum damage increased by this method is 66%. So that will definitely make her elemental skill do a lot more damage. Her Constellation 4. Sayu recovers 1.2 energy every time she triggers a swirl reaction. This can only occur every 2 seconds. It doesn't say anything about how much energy her elemental burst takes, but depending on how much it takes, that could be very good to her, having her ultimate up almost all the time. Her C6. For every 1 point of elemental mastery Sayu has, Luo receives a 0.2% increase in attack, and a maximum attack increase by this method is 400%. So you can definitely have her Luo do a lot of damage. Increases her Luo's recovery, healing in question mark, by 3 points. Maximum increase by this method is 6,000 points. So depending on a very good elemental mastery build, Sayu could pretty much be one of the best healers in the game. And I'm definitely going to summon for her when she comes out. So next we're going to go on to Yoimiya. Now the info for Yoimiya seems to be a bit weird. It doesn't exactly say which of these 2 abilities is her skill and her burst, but I'm going to, try my best to say which one. Her normal attack will fire 5 consecutive shots with the bow. Her charged attack has 2 charge levels. Charge level 1 shoots an arrow with a flame, dealing pyro damage, and charge level 2, a max of 3 flame arrows will be fired, depending on charge duration. These flame arrows will auto-track nearby enemies, dealing pyro damage on hit. So it's kind of like Ganyu, but instead of her charge attack doing, a kind of AoE, it tracks enemies. That's going to be pretty cool to see. And what I guess is her skill, Yoimiya follows her own creation, the Ryukin Kumomagusa, and leaps into the air, firing firework arrows in front of her, dealing AoE pyro damage, and tags one of the enemies hit with Ryukin Flare. When party members excluding Yoimiya herself hit an enemy under the effect of the Ryukin Flare with their normal attack, charge attack, plunge attack, elemental skill, and elemental burst, an explosion will occur, dealing AoE pyro damage. If an enemy under the effect of Ryukin Flare is defeated, the Ryukin Flare will be transferred to another enemy nearby and will continue from the remaining duration. Ryukin Flare will only explode every 2 seconds. When Yoimiya is defeated, the effect of Ryukin Flare generated by Yoimiya's skills will also disappear. I'm guessing that one is her skill. And what I think is her burst is the Flame Blazing Dance. Lights up strings of fireworks and make the flame revolve around Yoimiya. During the Blazing Dance, Yoimiya's normal attacks will be converted to pyro, dealing pyro damage and increasing the damage of the normal attack. During the Blazing Dance, charge attack level 2 will no longer generate the tracking arrow. The Blazing Dance effects will be removed when Yoimiya is switched away. So, under the effects of her ultimate, she'll probably still get the 3 arrows that she shoots out with a charge, but she won't track anymore. That's kind of an interesting detriment. Her constellations. Her C1, Akadama Ryukin, increases the duration of Ryokan Flare by 4 seconds. Additionally, when an enemy is defeated under the effect of Yoimiya's own Ryokan Flare, Yoimiya's attack will increase by 20%. This lasts for 20 seconds. So that also makes me think that the first one was her skill as well, because usually Constellation 1s affect the elemental skill. C2. Delivering fire with 1,000,000 lanterns. When Yoimiya's pyro damage causes a crit, she will gain an additional 25% pyro damage bonus in the next 6 seconds. Yoimiya will still gain this effect even if she is off field. That's pretty... With a high crit rate on her, you can hit a lot of extra pyro damage, especially if you consider how fast her normal attacks will hit. Her C4, the experience of a fireworks professional. When Yoimiya's own Ryokan Flare causes an explosion, the cooldown duration of Flame Blazing Dance is decreased by 1 second. So that's going to let her pull out her skill a lot more. And her C6, Potential Flow of the Stars. During the Flame Blazing Dance, when Yoimiya uses her normal attack, there's a 40% possibility that an additional flame arrow will be fired, dealing 50% of the original damage. This damage is regarded as a normal attack damage. So that additional flame arrow, if it's normal attack damage, it will get pyro damage with her ultimate. Overall, Yoimiya seems very interesting, kind of a little bit like Ganyu in some respects, but yeah, I can't wait to see more of her. And now we'll get on to Ayaka's constellation. Now for Ayaka, I was only able to find her constellations, but her constellation 1, Sosai Sumizome Sakura. When Ayaka's normal attacks deal cryo damage to enemies, there's a 50% chance for the cooldown of Ayaka's Kamisato art, Hyoka, by 0.3 seconds. I'm guessing that's her skill. This effect can occur up to once every 0.1 seconds. Her constellation 2, Ai Sugetsu. Ayaka's Kamisato art, Sometsu, will release 2 smaller Blade Storms, each dealing 20% of the original Blade Storm's damage. So that right here, there is her burst where she slashes and causes Blade Storms to move forward. Her constellation 4, Aiki Ryuhan. Enemies damaged by the Blade Storms from Kamisato art Sumetsu will have minus 30% defense for 6 seconds. That's a pretty good, damage boosting ability, because the highest one I know of so far is Superconduct, decreasing their resistance by 40%. Her constellation 6, Mie Yuki no Seki no To. Ayaka's damage increases by 10% within 3 seconds of her dealing critical cryo damage. This effect can proc once every 0.1 seconds and can stack 5 times. So if you get a lot of, cryo critical damage, she'll be able to boost her damage by a lot. We also have a render for Gorou, who is a Geobo user and part of the Resistance, as stated by Kazuha. All we have is how he looks. We don't know anything else really about him, but I do think it's pretty cool, and I will be going for him because, Geo's my favorite element, and I would love a Geobo user. So aside from the new characters, we also have information for new artifact sets and new weapons. The first artifact set is called Shimenawa of Memories. The 2-piece gives you 18% attack, and the 4-piece, if the character has 15 or more energy, casting your elemental skill will drain 15 energy and increase your normal charge and plunge attacks by 50% for 1 second. So this is obviously made for, physical damage characters or characters who, want to focus on their normal attacks and stuff. The next artifact is called Hatajirushi of Isolation. The 2-piece is a 20% energy recharge buff, and 4-piece increases your elemental burst damage, the extent of the increase being equal to 30% of energy recharge. The elemental burst damage can be increased by up to 75%. This is going to be very useful for characters who want, energy recharge. Someone like maybe Bennett, he has high energy recharge, so this could push him even further. Also for Venti, Xingqiu, just any character who has high energy recharge. And now for the new weapons. The first weapon we have here is a 5-star sword called Miscutting Gleam. Gain 12 to 24% of elemental damage bonus. Stacks of Miscutting Tomomon up to a maximum of 3 stacks can further increase your elemental damage of the same elemental character. And its main stat seems to be crit damage. So this is a very good sword. And it also has, some electric aesthetics, as I think all of the new weapons have. The next weapon is a 5-star bow called String of Thunder, and its main stat is also crit damage. It gives you 20% attack. You can acquire up to 3 seals of Thunder, which increase the damage of normal attacks by 12, 24, and 40%. Seals are from normal attacks for 5 seconds, elemental skills 10 seconds, and while having under 100% energy, I think. Seals are gained independently and have independent durations. Refinement scales the base attack buff to 40% and the increase in normal attack damage to 24, 48, and 80% at R5. So this bow is definitely for someone who wants to spam their normal attacks, like say Fischl, and it increases it by a lot, up to 40%. And now the next bow is a 4-star bow called Demon Breaker Bow, which main stat is 12% attack. Normal attack damage is increased by 16% and charge attack damage by 12%. When the wielder's elemental energy is at 100%, this effect is doubled. So it's a pretty decent bow. Definitely another one for normal attackers, although the buff doesn't seem as good as some other bows. The next weapon is a 4-star catalyst called Ring of Bai Chen, and it has energy recharge as its main stat. After the wielder triggers an electro-related reaction, nearby characters of the element using the reaction gain 10% elemental damage and the corresponding element for 6 seconds. This effect cannot stack. Another one that seems decent, but definitely there are other better catalysts out there, as you can only get 10% and it does not stack. The next weapon is a 4-star polearm called the Kitane Jumonji. It gives elemental mastery as its main stat. Elemental skill damage plus 6%. After an elemental skill hits, the wielder loses 3 elemental energy but recovers 3 elemental energy every 2 seconds for the next 6 seconds, even if swapped out. So you lose 3, but then you get 6 back, pretty much. It's a pretty decent one, again. All of these 4-star weapons seem to be decent. And I mean, they're definitely better than the 4-star weapons that we have now. That's if these are craftable. The next weapon is a 4-star claymore called the Katsuragi Satsuma, and it gives you energy recharge, it seems, from its main stat. Elemental skill damage plus 6%. After an elemental skill hits, wielder loses 3 elemental energy but recovers 3 elemental energy over the next 2 seconds. So pretty much the same as the polearm. And the final weapon is the Tenmoku Kage Uchigatana, which is a 4-star sword and has attack percent as its main stat. Once every 5 seconds after casting an elemental skill, gain 1 yen stack, up to 3 total with a 30% stack duration. Clears all yen after elemental burst, and after 2 seconds gains 6 energy per stack consumed. I'm trying to see here. It does not, the person who, said this does not show exactly what a yen stack is. Hopefully that becomes clearer in the future. But the sword seems pretty good. Depending on what yen can do, this sword could easily be the best of the 4-star weapons. And as for now, that seems to be all of the information that, I can find for the 1.7 patch. As I said, I will let you know if I end up figuring out more or getting more information. But, that will be it. Thank you all for watching, and if you did enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.